I can see comments while we do this actually live. So make sure that you have your comments ready and available. Tell me, first of all, if you're watching this live, tell me where you're watching it from. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what your topic is. So tell me what you're an expert in so that I can get to know you. And I'm going to be watching for your comments here so that I can keep track of who's asking what and I can help you. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to customize this because we're going to have some fun today. I want to talk to you a little bit about how I feel like I don't look that impressive on like presence wise on social and such, but I have something that a lot of those influencers really wish they have. And I know this because a lot of them are our clients and come to us because they have everybody here. How many of you think you need a gigantic audience? How many of you would like a much bigger audience? Tell me, if you would like to have a bigger audience, tell me in the comments, right? You think that having a bigger audience is just going to solve all of your problems. Some of you might think, oh, well, you know what, Geeta, I would like a bigger audience, but not of the people that I currently talk to because those people, not my people, right? How many of you are feeling that? So let me know what you think your biggest challenge is with your audience. Is it that you wish you had a way bigger audience? Is it that you feel like you have the absolute wrong audience? Like, what is your biggest challenge? That's going to be really helpful to me. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of why I feel like I'm qualified to talk about how to monetize your audience today. So I have walked into a room of 7 people, like literally 7 people where I thought it was going to be a lot bigger, but then it ended up being like an itty bitty tiny little situation, speaking engagement. And I was assured that these 7 people never bought anything. They were like cheap AF and just didn't buy. And I still walked out with 2 sales. Miracle of miracles. I have done lunch and learn type events. How many of you have done professional speaking events and you've done a lunch and learn, you know, where you go into a room full of like 45 women. It's often women. It's not always women, but like a chamber of commerce gig where you go in, you do a 45-minute talk, and then you're allowed to make a little offer at the end. And typically those things don't lead to anything but long, painful follow-ups. Well, I've consistently gone into situations like that and made at least 5 figures. Usually we're talking in the realm of $30,000 from a 45-minute talk that leads to sales right on the spot. And I have done that consistently. In fact, it is something that I teach in Impact with Influence. I teach that whole framework of how to structure your talk. I've done it with a 5-minute talk where I wasn't even allowed to make an offer. I was not allowed to mention the name of my program. And I have made $37K in that weekend from people who, some of whom followed me into the ladies' room to ask if they could buy me dinner so they could buy from me. So I just want you to know that this is absolutely doable. We have made more than $800,000 from an email list of 1,500 people, not 15,000. Our email list is actually still not that big. 15 as of this recording anyway, 1,500 people. Okay, so tiny list. That list was even built. It was all built in person from speaking engagements because I was not very good at online list building at the time. Again, you don't have to have a big list to make a decent chunk of change. If you look at my groups, like my Facebook group, as of this recording today in this moment is still under 2,000 people. My social is also like I can't remember. I don't even check my numbers, so I don't know what my numbers are, to be honest, but they're not particularly influencer-ish. I don't have huge followings anywhere, but we run a 7-figure business and it has never been a problem. So today I'm going to teach you everything that I know about monetizing even teeny tiny audiences, okay? Because if you know what you're doing, this is absolutely doable. Who's excited? Give me a big old thumbs up if this is a topic that you want to hear more about, because that's going to give me an idea that's going to tell me that that's the kind of topic that you want more information about, and then I'm going to create more free trainings about this, okay? All right, let's get into it. Number 1, how to know whether you have an audience issue or a clarity issue. So this is very important because if you're going to diagnose the problem, you want to make sure that you're fixing the right problem. I can't tell you the number of people who have come to us who are like, Geeta, I really need a bigger audience. I really teach me, and I'm going to be looking at your comments here. Teach me how to have a bigger audience. Teach me what to do. Let me know what the deal is. Can you help me? My audience is full of broke people. How many of you feel that way? Everybody in your audience is broke. Because I can assure you that it is almost guaranteed to not be the right problem. So a lot of people, here's how you know whether you have an audience issue or a clarity issue. So back in the day, before Impact with Influence, when I first got online, when I was quitting my 9 to 5 job in television and in the media, and I first decided, okay, let me take all my media expertise and teach people how to do their own PR. When I had my program, Baby Got Booked, I built my list doing speaking engagements in person. So this is a different offer, okay? So this is for Baby Got Booked. Now, when I decided to expand, when I basically woke up and realized, oh, my purpose has expanded, I'm kind of bored with that old conversation about just PR, just media. So any of you who are in that place where you're terrified because you're like, wait a minute, I always thought that this was my thing. This is my thing. This is the only thing I know what to do, how to do, right? And then you're like, well, if it's not this thing, then what the heck is it? So I don't know if you're in that place, I have so much sympathy for you because I have so been in that place. And when I was in that place, I also had a newborn who never slept. I literally was not sleeping longer than 40 minutes at a stretch. No joke. So it was like my entire world, my sanity was being ripped apart. My business was falling apart. I just didn't have enough of me to give to anything in that moment. And I was sitting with the discomfort of, if it's not this, then what is it? So been there, done that, have that t-shirt. Actually, let me tell you something. I am very grateful that I was that sleep deprived in that moment, because if I had not been, then by sheer work ethic and stubbornness, I would have prolonged the inevitable instead of surrendering to what it needed to become. So I am really grateful to my kid who never slept, who kind of basically ripped me of any stubbornness and grit that I would have normally mustered so that I could see what was right in front of me. And here's what happened. When I figured out how, I was like, okay, let me see. I know I'm very good at the PR piece. I'm very good at the messaging piece. But I noticed that every single one, we had a 96% success rate with our PR stuff. Everybody who did it got press, like local, national, international, their own column in Inc., their own column in Forbes. Like people were getting results all over the place. Some of those people were turning those press results into multi-million-dollar businesses. And a lot of those people were not. And I sat in the discomfort of thinking, what if I'm a fraud? What if I know how to do a thing and I'm very good at this thing, but what if that thing is ultimately useless? I can't even tell you how soul-suckingly heartbreaking that thought was. I can't tell you how many tears I cried when I thought that thought. And I'm very binary. I can sell anything to anyone if I believe in it. And I absolutely can't sell something if I don't believe, like I could not sell it if I didn't believe in it. And right there, I was like, beginning to lose hope, beginning to lose faith in my medicine, beginning to lose faith in this thing that I did, right? And I was like, am I accidentally harming people by giving them hope that this thing is going to work for them? Because it does work for some people, and I can see that, but it doesn't work for everybody. And what the fuck is that supposed to mean, right? So that was where I was sitting. So if any of you were sitting in that place, again, I built that table. So what I did was what any good journalist would do. I picked up the phone and I interviewed. I basically hunted down every single one of the clients that had taken my methodology that I had designed and was getting better results with it than I ever did, right? They were turning it into multi-million-dollar contracts and businesses. They were growing their client list and just having amazing success. And I was like, I interviewed all of them. They were all in different industries. They were all doing different things, but they all had the same things in common. And this is what they were. One, first of all, mindset-wise, they were primed for success. These were the people who had figured out, they had a system for handling self-doubt. Notice I did not say that they didn't have self-doubt. They all had self-doubt. Everybody has self-doubt. My billionaire mentors have self-doubt. Okay, it is a part of human consciousness. Stop trying to fix something that can't be fixed. It ain't broken in the first place. Self-doubt is a beautiful engine for growth. You don't want to lose your self-doubt ever. However, you want to have a good system to harness the energy of self-doubt so that it is constructive and not destructive. Where I saw big schism in our client base was the people who had self-doubt and had a system, had a process to harness its energy, were like full speed ahead. And the people who didn't were the ones who were like, wah. They would get the press, but they wouldn't believe in their own success. They couldn't embody it. Okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing is they all had premium programs. Not one single one of them was selling anything under $3,500. Every single one client for each of these people was at least $3,500. Many of them were selling at the $25,000 rate. Some were selling multi-million-dollar homes because we had realtors in there as well, that sort of thing. So also they didn't need a huge number of sales in order to have the business success. And then the final thing is that they had a very good sales system. They had a journey that their clients would take from prospect to client. It was short. The ones who had the shortest journey were usually the most profitable. Super counterintuitive, right? Everybody says, oh, you need to have a nice long journey. People need time to learn to trust you. I have a whole other video on this. So if you're not in my Facebook group, you really should be. And you should be watching those videos because I have done a deep training on how to build trust in a very short time frame. So I'm not going to get into those details here. But what I want to say is that if you know how to build trust in a short time frame, the shorter that time frame is, the less likely those people are going to be to go and get shiny object syndrome, to go get, seduced by some other program or whatever. They're also going to be that when they have that energy that they want that change right this minute. In fact, they wanted it yesterday. They're in that position with all that energy primed for transformation. That's when you want to meet clients. They're more likely to invest. And most importantly, they're most likely to do the work, which means they're going to get results, which means they're going to be your clients for life. They're going to force you to create continuity, which is what happened in our business. They're going to tell all their friends about you, which is what's happened in our business. They're going to tell you exactly what to create next, which again is what happened in our business. And when you record the testimonial journey with them, that's going to attract, a whole bunch of other clients to you. Does that make sense? So the very first thing that I realized when I was trying to figure out, maybe I had the wrong, because I had the same thought. I was like, I built this list for a very different offer. So when I went from Baby Got Booked to Impact with Influence, this is before it even had a name, I was like, this is what this program needs to look like. And I built it for me because I am my own ideal client. Just spoiler alert, you are your own ideal client. You just are. That's how it is. And again, I have a whole other training on exactly how to do this. It's how to choose your coach. So if you haven't watched that, please do. But anyway, in this particular situation, I realized that I needed to build this just so I could understand all the different parts of it. And what ended up happening is the most beautiful thing happened is I met my mindset coach right around then. And I was ripe for that transformation where I needed to be primed for success. I needed to have this process to manage my self-doubt because man, oh man, did I have a lot of it in that moment. And that same coach is now part of our mindset team and works with all of our clients. And we have two of them actually both of these people were instrumental in helping me figure these things out. And they both work with all of our clients. So that's what I saw as kind of the transformation. But now this big thing, which was significantly more of an investment too, was way bigger and for a significantly different audience than my little PR only program was. So I was like, crap, got to go back to the drawing board. And in some cases we did, right? My public Facebook page was branded to my old program name. I will never make that mistake again. Let me give you a little tip for free. You are the parent brand. As much as possible, use your own name or use something that's like your name. So if you have a very unspellable name, I don't have the most memorable name, I have to say, but use your name, at least on Facebook, as your parent brand and put all your programs under it. Because if you ever change the name of your program or expand your program like I did, you're going to have to start at zero. That was not fun. Okay, moving on. So that's what happened to me. I had to start at zero with a lot of our social. And what I did was I didn't make the mistake of kind of dismissing my email list. Whatever social network I had, I was like, I'm going to assume, because here was my belief, and this is what I want to transmit to you. So if there's nothing else you get from this piece, here's what you need to know. Your list and your audience are a reflection of you. Especially if you find them triggering, it is because those are the pieces of you, though they're maybe reflecting a piece of you or a part of you or a way of being that you've had that perhaps you're outgrowing or you have expanded past or that you're kind of done with. And that's often when we get really triggered with our audience showing up a particular way, is because we have kind of grown past that, but they reflect who we were. Does that make sense? So they're going to reflect who we were, and there's going to be pieces in there, people in there that are also ready, who are making that same journey of transformation as you transform, as you expand, as you go to that newly evolved way of understanding things. They're going to make that journey with you. And that's exactly what happened with us. I had people on my email list. In fact, some of those people were probably more evolved than me, had happened to end up on my email list because there was some emotional resonance. But they never bought anything from me in the past because they were like, it's just, I don't feel like I need that. Like, that's just not my thing. I don't need that. I don't feel like spending money on it. Okay. Imagine if I had thrown them out, because what ended up happening is, where they hadn't even bought a $7 tripwire from me back in the day, they were now investing the significant investment it is to work with us with Impact with Influence now, without any, you know how they say you have to create a bridge of purchases and blah, blah, blah. It's such bullshit. It's not true. A lot of these people had been waiting for me to make them the right offer. I did not understand my medicine deeply enough to appeal to them. They were waiting patiently for me to figure what the heck I actually did for them, for me to figure it out. Once I figured it out, I was able to find the words to express it to them. But it took me that breakdown, that expansion of consciousness, that utter despair, to get to that moment where I was like, oh, I see what I actually do for people. And it's not just helping them get press. Does this make sense to you? Give me a big old thumbs up if this makes sense to you, and tell me what your big aha is in the comments and how this applies to you, because I would love to share in your stories, and I would love to help you nuance your understanding a little bit better. So I'm going to come back and read comments after. I'm just going to keep going for now, but I would love to come back and read comments and kind of give you specific feedback based on what you share with me. Okay. Now, so the first things first is your audience, your listening audience is a reflection of you. And yes, you may be up leveling, but they're also going to shift. The more you understand your work, the more they're going to shift with you. I just want to make that point really clear. So 9 times out of 10, you don't have an audience problem. You have an offer problem. Your problem is that you don't understand what you actually do for people well enough to be able to articulate it to them. Does that make sense? You're stuck in all the stuff and the fluff around it, and you haven't sat with it and really embodied it. And therefore, when you don't have the understanding, you can't find the words for it. So you can't message first. You have to understand first and message. It's a 2-step process. Cool? Okay. Point number 2. The 3 things that you have to do, if you want to monetize even tiny audiences already. I hope you have a notebook, because if you don't, you're going to be sad. Okay. Number 1. How many of you have made the mistake of getting a client really excited, or you're doing a speaking engagement, or you're doing a live, or you've got a Facebook post, and people are kind of interested in what you have to offer, but then people are like, okay, so tell me how it works. And then you get into this whole like breakdown of like the modules and the videos and the templates and the printables and the this and the that and the deliverables, and people's eyes glaze over and they're just like, yeah, okay, that's great. Perfect. Send that to me by email and I'll get back to you. So the number 1 thing you don't want to be doing is talking about your stuff. Nobody cares. Okay. You need to do the very first thing we do with our clients in week 1 is we help our clients understand their clients' pain. That is the most important thing. And I want to be real clear about this part too. It is very different. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I knew that. Thanks, Geeta. Like I totally knew that. Lots of people think they have this right, and most people don't. And if you want to know which one of those people you are, look at your results. If your bank account is overflowing, you've got it. You figured this out. If your bank account is not overflowing, I can tell you that there's room for improvement here. It's as simple as that. And I'll tell you why. Because A, you're a reflection of your own client. Again, remember I told you that. The very first thing we do with our clients is we help them see how they are their own ideal client, and then to really get granular, really deeply understand their ideal client's pain at a surface level, at that next level, at a deeply subconscious level, what's the whole emotional gamut of it, like all of those things. And you have to root through your own history, right? Because you're your own ideal client in many ways. You're going to have to think through like, okay, what were the deep transformations? How did these clients come to me? How, like if you've had your previous clients when you're using them to sift through this information, okay? So there's a big difference between saying, I work with women to help them cut through the overwhelm. My clients are overwhelmed, right? What does that mean? It's so empty. So yes, you're naming their pain. If you think that this is how it's done, it's not. Yeah, I mean, you can do it this way, but it's not very effective. You could talk about someone's overwhelm, or you can talk about the fact that this person, I'll give you an example of clients that we've worked with. We worked with a client who's been in business for a really long time, more than a decade, and they had so many different programs that they were offering that their application was like yay long. Like I was tired just reading how many different programs at all the different price points and all the different like subsections of different audiences. And I'll tell you what, these people, I knew from reading that, I was like, you're spread so thin. So yes, they were overwhelmed. I work with people who are overwhelmed, absolutely applies. But here's what that overwhelm felt like. They have segmented themselves into all these different pieces that are being parceled out. And unfortunately, their energies are spread so thin that they're getting to a point where they're resentful, they're frustrated, they're in constant creation mode. They're not getting nourished. So they're in constant output mode. There's not a lot of nourishment coming back. They're now there's stress around which part of themselves, and it's not that they're deliberately trying to present a different face, it's that they're just like, no, these people want to hear about this, and that audience wants to hear about that, and then this other audience wants to hear about this because this offer has nothing to do with that offer. And so they felt completely just split and fragmented, and they were exhausted. Okay, you see how different, yes, it's longer, but it describes the pain that my clients go through so much better than just overwhelm. Okay? Now, so if you don't do this well, kiss your money goodbye. Kiss your sales goodbye, because it's just not going to happen. You earn the right to talk about yourself and your credentials and all that other good stuff after you have proven that you deeply, deeply understand your client's pain. Got it? That's one. The second thing is you have to understand their bliss. You have to understand what it is they're working towards. And of course, you have to be really careful here to not project your own bliss onto them. You have to really sit with, and again, this is a deep process, and this is how we do it with our clients. It's a very deep process to say, what are all the different ways in which you get paid? What are all the different ways in which you experience bliss? What are all the different ways what does success look and feel like to you? And we do this work with our clients, even on an epiphany session, because once you understand that, you're also 9 out of 10 of our clients. Yes, obviously we help people make money, and we do. And we absolutely do. But one of the things I tell every single client, and everybody on our team, like who are signing up clients, says to every single client is, we cannot guarantee you specific financial results in a specific time frame. No human can guarantee that. You can't even guarantee that. Okay? If you're in it just for the money, it's not going to work. It just doesn't work like that. But the money comes as a side effect of doing this deeper work. So one of the things we talk about is like, what are all the ways that success manifests for you? When you understand that better for yourself, you're able to then put that in your messaging for your clients. Does this make sense to you? So understand their pain, understand their bliss. And the third thing is you have to make sure that you know you have to learn how to listen to them, even in your messaging. That's right. People are like, okay, I could totally do that, Geeta, when I'm in front of someone. Right? How many of you feel that way? You're like, put me in front of a client, no problem. I can close anybody. Absolutely. With COVID, that's not happening. Not for a really long time. Okay, how do you even get in front of that client though? Does your front end messaging listen to your clients? Do you know how to do that? And that's what we teach our clients, is how do you listen even though you're broadcasting? So I'm doing it right now, right? I have done it so many times, and it's not a one and done. It's not like you do it once and then you've done it. It's that you've got a process that you rinse and repeat and add nuance to. That's what's going to help you do this in an effective way, where the more of your content that clients consume, the more they're like, man, she really gets me. Like whoa, she just said something and I literally said that same word this morning. How many of you have had that? I can't tell you the number of clients that we work with actively right now that have said some version of exactly that. It's like a word, it's a theme, it's an essence. And why? Because they're me and I'm them. Okay. And that's not a coincidence. We've honed it down to where the deeper I understand myself and my own internal motivations, the deeper I understand how I get paid, the deeper I understand my own pain, the more I'm able to articulate it in a meaningful way for clients. You want to build, remember I talked about the shortest journey that you can create from prospect to client. You want to build trust quickly and shorten that journey. This is how you do it. So if the three things that you have to do is you have to know their pain, you have to understand their bliss, and you have to present it in a way that really speaks to them. And that comes from knowing your own. Does that make sense? Now, let's get into guru versus coach, because this is a big one. I have feelings about this. So typically when you do low ticket, high volume, so when you're charging $27 or $197 or even $997 or whatever that looks like, all of these guru courses, right? The way that typically works is that you're selling them on your credentials, on your charisma, on your experience, on you. It's all about you. And the more big and shiny and perfect you are, the more people are like, well, hell, I want to be like that person and I'm totally going to go buy it. Okay? That works when it's low dollar because there's not that much risk involved. People can take a risk and people can try something, and if it doesn't work for them, so be it. How many of you have bought some guru PDF or downloaded some tripwire or $27 product or $37 product or whatever, and you've never even opened it? Guilty as charged. I'm sure you are too, right? We've all done it. And that's because they spoke to us at a particular time and then we're like, yeah, I don't know. Moving on. Shiny object syndrome. In the premium space, you have to speak to clients. You have to be really crystal clear about what you do for them. And I want to tell you a story about this. And it actually speaks to the earlier point I made of, do you have an audience problem or do you have a messaging problem? So I'm going to call out one of our clients, Stephen, who this is probably the best embodiment of this particular gap that I have ever seen in my life. So he came to us and he was like, Geeta, I need you to help me grow my audience. I need you to help me grow my audience. I was like, really? And then I checked him out online and I was like, dude, you have a huge audience. You have 150,000 followers. What are you talking about? Why do you need help growing your audience? Tell me what's not working. So I ask him these questions. And as he's talking, I see what's emerging. In his mind, his audience is the wrong audience. They're all broke. They all have poverty mindset or scarcity mindset, or name it, whatever you want to name it. They don't understand the value of what it is he's doing for them. They can't bring themselves to invest in themselves. Fill in the blank with all of this jazz. Tell me if this sounds familiar, right? I listen to him and I'm like, really? So tell me what it is you do. So he tells me, and he was one of those people who has worked with a gajillion coaches on his marketing. He's worked with a lot of marketing coaches. And what his coaches told him to do was to create the perfect elevator pitch. And so he had a great elevator pitch, except it meant nothing. It meant nothing to his clients. And he talked about, and so just you have to understand Stephen, right? He has all of the things that should make a successful guru. He's gorgeous. He's 6'4". He's former military. He has been advisor to the UN, bodyguard to the Rolling Stones, bodyguard to Olivia Newton-John. He's been in crazy combat situations. The stories this man can tell will put hair on your chest. I'm just saying. Okay. So again, he has all the trappings of success, everything that should make this absolutely a slam dunk. And yet it wasn't that. And what was extra super duper frustrating for him was that he had a giant audience and it was a pretty engaged audience. These people loved him. These people followed him. They referred people to him that also didn't buy. Unfortunately, there were comments and comments and comments on his lives and on his posts and whatnot, but no sales. And here's what the problem was. He had this, again, very picture perfect kind of program where he was talking about HIT. HIT was his thing: honesty, integrity, and transparency. Okay. Now think about this. How many of you feel like your life is perfect? You're like somebody could show up and shoot an Insta story of your life and people would be like, wow, this person has it totally together. Anybody on this call, anybody feel like that's them? Because I sure as shit don't. Like if you could see my desk right now, you would faint. Okay? That's the thing. Honesty, integrity, and transparency is not a compelling message, or is actually a terrifying message to people who feel like they don't have it together, who feel like they need help, who feel like they are in pain. Okay? And so what we saw was that in literally in the very first day and a half of working with Steve, we were like, let's talk about what you do for them, not what you do out of context. Let's not make it pretty. Let's not freaking have an acronym to it. Let's not do any of this meaningless crap. Let's talk about what you actually do. Let's talk about their pain. Let's talk about their bliss. And let's talk about the journey in between those two things. And this is a process that we take all of our clients through. And literally in doing just that, he made his first $16,000 like that in the first 48 hours. Now, like I said, he had a big audience. He had an audience of people who loved him, who trusted him, who just didn't understand what the F he did, right? Or how it applied to them. So he was able to transform that immediately. He made more than $120,000 during the time that he was in our 8-week program from those same broke people. Again, and this is the difference between a guru versus a coach. A guru talks a lot about them and themselves and their own journey and what they're up to and their program and this, that, and the other thing. And a coach in my book, or if, people in the premium space, however you choose to self-identify, what you're going to be talking most about is your client's journey, your client's pain, their bliss, and everything in between. And where you do share, does this mean you never tell stories about yourself? No, absolutely. I told you a story about myself today, but I only told you that story as a way to show you, to illustrate for you that I understand your pain, that our pain is similar, that I have felt it, that I have figured it out, and I have come out the other side. Does this make sense? Let me know if this is making sense, and let me know what your questions are. So I'm going to go and open up comments here so that I can start fielding some questions. All right. So, say what? I have one more topic. Okay. So Pat is live producing this, and Pat is live producing this. And oh yes, that's right. How to build trust quickly and reliably. I touched on this a little bit. So, and I've created a whole other video on how to build trust quickly and reliably. So if you are in the Messaging That Makes Money Facebook group, that's probably the best place to find it. Look in the video section and look for how do I sell premium if I don't have testimonials? Because I talk a lot about this in that particular video. But long story short, if you're going to build trust in a tightened time frame, and I've talked about this already in this video, you're going to have to demonstrate. You have to not tell. Again, having the perfect elevator pitch, useless. Having the perfect title, useless. Having the perfect program name, waste of energy. More than 60% of the people who sign up for our program don't even know the name of it before they have handed over credit card details and signed the client agreement and started the damn program. And they only know the name because they're logging into the site and there is the name. Because the name of my program doesn't ultimately change shit for anybody, right? I could call it 2 poodles and a fart and it would still work because the program, okay, I wouldn't call it that, to be fair. Don't call it that. But I'm just saying, what does impact with influence actually mean? What does it mean? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. It sounds great. It felt right. And I went with it. It's as simple as that. So if you're sitting there and like killing yourself trying to pick the perfect name for your program, having a perfect name is really fun because that click is kind of fun. But I will tell you this, no matter how perfect you think the name is, I have gone through many phases with the name of my program, just so you know. At first I was like, yes, I found it. It's perfect. It says it has the feeling that I want to evoke, blah, blah, blah. Then 2 weeks later, I'll be like, what does it mean? I'm not really sure. Should it be impact and influence? Should it like impact with influence? Is that the right? Like I have gone through all of these phases and none of it matters. None of it. It's just the ego's way of keeping you distracted with shit that does not matter so that you don't Face all the fears that are actually holding you back from proceeding and putting your work out there, because your work has nothing to do with the name of your program or your brand colors or your logo or your title or your credentials or any of that. And it has everything to do with how quickly and how deeply you are willing to get to know your ideal client. And how transparently are you willing to share with them the oogiest pieces of your own journey that mirror the pain that they're mired in? You want to build trust, you have to be able to tell those pieces of your story. And the only way to tell them in a way that isn't oversharing is for you to have processed the emotional content out of it, so that you have actually let your emotions, there is no trauma related to that story anymore, so that you can actually let it go. And then you can tell that story from a place of, I'm sharing this with you so you can benefit from it. I'm not sharing it with you to evoke sympathy. I'm not sharing it with you to even take any attention onto myself. I'm sharing it with you because I was given this journey so I could pass it on. And if you're not in that place yet, that's why when we work with clients, we have a dedicated mindset team working with them one-on-one to help them process all of these emotions, to help build a toolkit, because it's not like your trauma is suddenly going to stop, right? It's not. It's a lifelong process. You're going to have experiences that are going to create big emotional reactions in you. It's when you have a reliable process to move through those emotions, to take to diffuse the bombs that they can kind of create in your body and in your psyche. Then you can take the experience itself, you can turn it into a story, you can turn it into a training, you can turn it into a transformation for somebody else. Does that make sense? So let me know if this is resonating for you. Facebook is hiding all comments from me, obviously, because, here we go. Okay, so Jessica says, how does success manifest for your clients? I need to spend more time examining bliss. How can we tease this out more deeply? So it's funny because a lot of times people tell you two poodles in a pod. Sorry, I'm reading comments here on my feed that I managed to finally open up. So Jessica says, how does success manifest for your clients? I need to spend more time examining bliss. How can we tease this out more deeply? Well, first of all, a really good way to do this, and again, we have a very deep process that we take our own clients through. And lots of people, you would be surprised, or maybe not so surprised to hear, lots of people are so married to their pain. And I'm going to tell you something else. You ready? You ready for some truth bombs here? When you're struggling with finding bliss, when you're struggling to articulate, so what did I tell you? Use yourself as your ideal client, right? Figure out what is your pain. And a lot of our clients will have pages and pages and pages and pages of pain because they're very, very clear on the pain because they have spent so much time mired in it, rolling around in it, experiencing and re-experiencing and overthinking and overanalyzing the pain. We've all been guilty of this. No shame here. Okay. Lots of people will go through that, but their bliss sheet will be like yay big. Okay. It's like teeny in comparison. Now, when that happens, you're going to see two things in your business. One, you're going to start to see clients who are a lot of fucking work. Okay, just a lot of work. Why? Because they're mirroring your own deep attachment to the pain. You are not yet fully willing to let that pain go. Okay, so it's when you start, and we work with clients on this because everybody comes in at a different level of this journey, but the people who get the fastest results are typically people who are like, I can see the pain, but I'm very clear on the bliss too. So the best advice that I would give you, Jessica, is you're absolutely right. You need to sit with your own definition of bliss. Your own definition of bliss is not fully fleshed out enough that you're able to see it when in your clients, if that makes any sense, right? When you don't know what you're working towards, it becomes very, very comfortable and it becomes very, very compelling to stay attached to your pain. Because this is what you know, and what you don't know is always more terrifying. Always. It always triggers that mammalian fear that we're wired for. So if you don't know what you're moving towards, you're going to be stuck in the pain. And you're going to attract clients who are also going to have a really hard time giving themselves permission to make that leap into the void, to make the leap into getting your own help. And that's where you have to take responsibility for your own healing before you can fully heal others. Does that make sense? Does this make sense? get clear on your own bliss. So Katie's seeing that this is a huge inside blaze. You can see that as well. So Reina wants to sign up for 2 poodles and a fart. See, it doesn't matter what you call your program. There'll always be people who are willing to buy. All right. So what are we talking about here? So Renee says, I really appreciate that you talk about your views on money and value. While we can't guarantee specific, nobody can guarantee specific financial results. I wish I could. I would do that for me first, right? But that's not how it works. What we want to work with people who are in this because this is your life's purpose. And whether it works out this round or 20 rounds from now, you're never going to stop trying. That's who I am. No, I'm just talking here. That's like, whose comment are you reading? I'm like, mine. Do you hear Pat? He's the voice of my conscience. Okay. So he's just like, whose comment is this? I need to put it on the screen. This is me. I'm just saying, like, you can't ask other people, you can't in full confidence ask other people to take responsibility this way if you haven't done it for yourself. Have I had months where things are falling apart and you're like, okay, need to like re-rack our systems and figure out what the new opportunity is because the old opportunity appears to be over, right? Yes, absolutely. I've been through that not once, not twice, but countless times. Am I still in the game? Yes. Why am I still in the game? Because I didn't quit, because I found a way, because I accepted and I surrendered to that moment. I learned how to process my grief. I learned how to process my fear. I have tools to deal with what comes up for me in such a way that I will tell you now, every single time things go tits up in any way, shape, or form, I'm like, this is Pat's favorite expression. Just you want to make Pat laugh out loud in a way that will make you laugh too, just say tits up. It just cracks him up every time. All this to say that every time things go tits up, I'm like, amazing. This is going to make an amazing email. This is going to make an amazing training. We have made so much money from the things that have gone wrong for us. I cannot even tell you. This is going to make an amazing theme for a group coaching call where I know that if I'm going through it, we're a collective consciousness. Other people have this particular pattern that they're working through, and I'm going to be able to, by being vulnerable, by being raw, by bringing this to the table, by having done some of the processing work myself, I'm going to bring it in such a way that we can all then group process it, and that healing becomes available to everybody. Does this make sense? This is how we do what we do. Is there an elevator pitch that could say all of this? I don't think so. Does there need to be an elevator pitch that could say all of this? I don't think so. I've never needed one. And I don't think that you do either. So if you want to monetize every audience, you need to know exactly what you actually do. You need to know your own pain really deeply. You need to know your own bliss just as deeply. And then you need to be able to describe your process in a way where people's little hairs on their arms stand up, where they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. I want that. Does that make sense? Is that simple? Did that answer your question? Let's see. We've been talking about tits up. Tits up, Patrice. Yeah, see, there's like a whole wall of people saying tits up. That's true. You have to say tits up. Oh my God, it's too funny. Yeah, so there you go. Let's see. It will be written with the British. Yeah, obviously. Okay, I think that we're pretty much done here. If anybody has any compelling questions, I'm like, there's just like all these like hilarious things about poodles and tits here that I'm just like, okay. But you contributed to that. I did. You're welcome. If anybody has a compelling question that does not involve poodles or tits, I will be happy to answer it. I have time for just one more. Gabriel says, thank you, Geeta, for your continual commitment to showing up in your medicine, pain, and bliss like this. Embodying the medicine. You're so welcome, Gabriel. It is my privilege because we're in it for the healing. I often say to our clients, we're all in different industries. Some are in health, some are in wellness, have nothing to do with business. Some are like very esoteric spiritual, in an esoteric spiritual place. And we all ultimately do the exact same work. Whatever the surface level of it looks like, whatever the price points or the verbiage of it looks like. Ultimately, all humans are in it for healing. We're all looking to heal the collective consciousness, and we're all doing it and the only way to do that is to first heal yourself and then make that healing available to everybody else. And that's how you monetize just about every gosh dang audience. Because the more you can heal yourself, the more pieces, the more compelling pieces of your own story become available for you to share in a way that, again, doesn't make people feel yucky because you've processed it. When you've processed it, then you can put it out there with an energy that allows people to be receptive to it. So people often say to me, I love your energy. Your confidence is what attracted me. It's the way that you express yourself. It's not wordcraft. I mean, God, if you've been watching my lives for any amount of time, you know that halfway through most lives, I choke on my own saliva. I need to take a water break. Like, I start lives by muting myself. Like, this is not stagecraft. This is not extra polished or professional. Like I told you, my desk is a disaster zone today. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be clear. And the other thing that I think is really amazing about learning to do it this way is that when you can have this level of acceptance, self-acceptance, it creates compassion in you, where now that incredible insight that a lot of coaches have, so a lot of us have that ability to see somebody else's. We're all really good at seeing other people's shit rather than our own, right? We can see right through other people's BS. So the problem with that is that if you haven't first built compassion into this process, it can feel very transgressing. It can feel like it's not predatory exactly, because predatory, implies a victim, but it feels very judgmental. So if you are a coach that has deep insight, you're able to read people beautifully. That's an amazing skill to have. The skill that is just as important to have, if not more important to have, is the skill of self-acceptance, because all judgment is self-judgment. And if you can let your self-judgment go, then you can come to the table and see somebody else's stuff, and you can come there and you can point it out with such gentleness and humility that they can actually hear it, and they can actually feel it, and they can actually let it go. Does that make sense? Katie has a question. All right, let's see. So if your bliss isn't your client's bliss, since you overcame it already, how do you pick which bliss to live in? Like a general bliss, you mean? I do mean a general bliss. So Katie, what's beautiful about this? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Swapna says I look great and blush. Thank you. So what Katie is asking is, so let's say, so we've talked about this before, right? Let me use this. So imagine this is a continuum. This is like nirvana, and this is like, oh my God, why? Right? So yeah, it should be the other way around. It's true, because we'll do this again. Again, like I said, we're totally perfect around here. This is nirvana, and this is oh my God, why? Okay? So your client is going to be closer to the oh my God, why side of things. You're going to be closer to the nirvana side of things. Now, Katie's question is, and I know Katie because she's a client of mine, so Katie helps women in particular, but I guess people of all genders, overcome binge eating and cure it for good, without diets, without over-exercising, without any of those things. And she's very freaking good at what she does. Now, Katie's saying, but hey, I've been over binge eating for so long that for me, I've kind of like, that bliss seems very normal to me, Katie. If I'm understanding you correctly, that's what I'm hearing you say. So you're like, well, that's not my bliss anymore. So how do I apply this in my messaging? How do I apply this with clients? So the simple answer to that is that your clients think that not having a binge eating disorder, not being completely obsessed with food, not fill in the blank with whatever they're currently like, the pain that they're mired in, right? When they release that pain, they're like, oh, bliss is going to be like, whatever. I'm going to feel free because I don't have to think about food all the time. Or I'm going to feel free because I don't overeat to the point of pain. And they're like, that's bliss for me. You have to understand what that means deeper. Like you have to go a layer deeper and a layer deeper than that to know what they're really looking for, Katie, is freedom, which is the exact same thing that you're looking for. Your bliss is also freedom. It's freedom from addiction. It's freedom. And this is why, not to reveal too much, but this is why you're being given some of those other challenges that you're going through so that you can find the connections between what they're living and what you're living, because you're so much further ahead and you're reliving a version of it differently. When you understand, the more layers you live with the same pattern, the more you understand the pattern better. Ultimately, you're both working towards freedom. So you, Katie, want to think about, what does freedom look like for you? And in your case, and Jessica, this might speak to you as well, all of the people who are very mired in pain or have had long, deep relationships with their pain, where they're like, I don't know if I can break up. And if I break up, then who would I even be? Who would I be if I gave up my pain? Because my pain is so much a part of my identity, right? Those are the hardest clients, because it's so hard for them to let go enough to transform. And you don't want to be putting that much of pain into your messaging where you're attracting those people because they're like, yes, pain. She talks only about pain. Awesome. I want that. You want to have people who are in that openness where they understand their pain, they acknowledge the pain, but they're also ready to be done with it. They're ready to heal, and they're ready to take full responsibility for their healing. So again, Katie, the way that I would message this is I would look at, what does freedom, what are the different layers of freedom for you? What does freedom feel like in your body? You're going to have to educate your clients about what freedom can be by experiencing more of it yourself. Does that make sense? Jessica, this applies to you too. You're going to educate your clients. They don't have any clue what's available to them because they're so far back on that continuum that they're like, oh my God, like if I could just be normal, that would be awesome. That's freedom to me. But they have no clue what's available to them. The more you educate, the more you understand it for yourself, the more you embody freedom for yourself, the more they're going to be like, oh, hey, that actually sounds pretty good. And then you can show them what that feels like. You give them little tastes of it. You help them taste it and imagine it for themselves. That's what's going to give them that juice to be able to make the leap and invest and do the actual work. Does that make sense? So hopefully this answers your question. Let me see if it does. Yes. Okay, perfect. Ooh. Jessica's like, oof, yeah, I need more bliss in my messages. Got to talk more about what it feels like. And again, this is not something that you can fake. I don't believe that you can fake your messaging. Something that Michelle Mercurio, who's both a client and a copy coach on our team, always says is you can't message before you process. You have to first live it. Then you can message it. Lots of people try to bypass the processing phase because processing can be uncomfortable. It brings up all your demons. You got to sit with all your yucky stuff. You got to stretch yourself. Like bliss is, people always think, oh, pain is really hard. And, it'll be really hard to explain that, or very hard to sit in my pain. And I just don't, I don't want to make myself depressed. I'll tell you something. A lot of people are very comfortable in that place. And for them, it's really hard to stretch towards bliss. Bliss feels like so uncomfortable for them because they're so comfy here. They're so embodied here. And so the more you can stretch towards bliss, the more you can kind of get into that space, the more you can teach your body and your and it's a practice. Again, this is very much a practice. This is not a one and done. You can't fake this because unless you fully embody it, you can be saying the words, people will not pick it up. Like it won't come through. It's the essence that you communicate. So if you want clients that are more open to healing, you have to take more responsibility for your own healing. And if you feel like your clients are too trapped in their pain and they're not really open to bliss, then you have to learn to experience more bliss and you have to learn to message it better. So instead of just talking about the pain, start talking about the bliss. Start talking about what it feels like. Start talking about what it feels like, not just in your mind, not just in your life, not just how you describe the outside of it, but how it feels in your body, how it feels viscerally. And people are going to start being like, oh. And the next time they feel a little twinge of it, they'll notice. And then they're going to be like, oh my God, the more I listen to this girl, the more I seem to have this shift without even actually doing anything, because that's how energy works. Does that make sense? And they're opening themselves up to what's actually already happening. Those are the best clients to work with. All right. Anthony Thompson. All right. I see it. With regards to coaching or teaching, how do you establish credibility or value if you are not necessarily successful in the realm? So I'm going to assume, Anthony, and you're going to tell me in the comments if this is what you mean. You mean that I haven't necessarily worked in this realm before, so I haven't coached clients in exactly this way. Is that what you mean? Because if you're telling me that you've never actually had this transformation yourself, and therefore, how do you message it that way? Then I'm like, you don't. You don't. You can't message before you process. If you haven't had this transformation yourself, you are not qualified to teach it. That's the first thing I'm going to say. But if I'm assuming you mean that you have lived it yourself, but you don't know how to describe, you haven't worked with enough people where you can describe other people's journeys. In that situation, again, start using, it's like you almost want to weirdly objectify yourself. You want to like have that kind of, higher self, human self experience where you're like, okay, what does small a Anthony, what was his journey? What was his pain? What was his bliss? What were some of the things he had to learn along the way? And then you're going to tell that story to attract clients who are in that place, who are stuck with the same pain that you have and who have many of the same aspirations that you do. And you're going to describe that journey, however far along they're in. You're going to describe it in a way that, again, it's going to be such a like, oh my God, you have so described it. Like, look at the comments on this live, right? People are like, oh my God, I can't tell you how much this live is addressing experiences I've had this week. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. That's such a gift. Thank you. So why am I getting feedback like this? I haven't worked with Jennifer. Jennifer is not a client of mine at this moment in time, right? But I'm able to describe her experience. Why? Because I have gone down, down, down. The more I process, the deeper I go. The deeper I go, the more universal my truth ends up being. This speaks to exactly what I talked about with Katie, right? Katie's clients, their truth on the surface looks very different from her bliss. Their bliss on the surface looks very different from her bliss because she's so much further ahead. But when you go down, down, down to where we're all one collective consciousness, it's vague only if you're faking it. If you're not faking it, then you can actually speak at that depth without being vague. That is what we teach our clients to do. And the way that we do it is we first work on the mindset pieces. We work on the emotional processing. We take you to that actual place. And once you're there, then we help you find the words to describe it. Does that make sense? All right. So that's it from me. Over and out. It's been almost an hour. I just want to say I hope you've enjoyed this live. I would love for you to invite your friends to watch it, to come back and watch it again and take notes. I cannot tell you, the people who we work with that get the best result are the people who come back and spend the time listening to it a second time, because you're going to hear things so much more deeply the second time. And if you have any questions, put them in for me in the comments. I'm going to spend some time this evening going through all the comments, answering as many questions as I can. You, my audience, lead me to the exact content that I get to create for you. That's a privilege, my privilege to create for you, because you ask such great questions. So keep asking me questions. Tell me where you're stuck. Tell me what you're working on that has you kind of been like, oh my God, I wish I could just break through. Tell me where you're at so that I can help you by creating content that helps you understand it all better so you can bust through. Does that make sense? And of course, if you're thinking about becoming a client, I highly recommend that you find a link somewhere around this video that will allow you to watch. So there are two things that you can do. One, you can watch my 30-minute training, super duper important, because if you apply and we're very specific about who we work with. We're very good at building a certain kind of business, and we don't touch anything that isn't that. Okay, so a certain kind of business with a certain kind of person. So in order for you to know if this is going to work for you, the best thing to do is to watch my 30-minute training where I walk you through exactly what our framework is, what our process is, so that you can see, does this resonate for you? Is this something you're ready for? It may not be right now. And that's okay. We have loads of free resources in my Facebook group and on YouTube. Like, you can just watch free resources and do these exercises, and they will help you anyway. But if you're ready for that next up level, if you're ready to be held in a way that you've never been held before, if you're ready for multiple layers of support, both with your messaging and your copy and your business building and strategy, as well as with the deep emotional breakthroughs, if you're ready for all of that and you're open to having that healing happen and you're willing to take full responsibility for it, then after you watch that training, you will be invited to book a call, and you'll get to speak to either me or someone on my team who will then be able to show you exactly where your own blocks lie, exactly what the real opportunity is in your business, what you actually do for people. And then if we're in a position to help you, we'll make you an offer. And if not, we'll give you free resources or refer you to somebody who can help you. Does that make sense? So thank you so much for spending your time with me. This has been a blast, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye.